it's a two-way street. Okay. So I get the New York City architect, but I get the builder. And the end of this is the builder has to be your best friend. I'm going to say it has to be your best friend. If you can't relate to the builder, you've lost the game.
So we recently met. I have a project in Germantown, New York, or a couple of projects in Germantown, New York, and you have a customer
Yep.
who lives or would like to live down the street from these residential projects. Um, I got an email and it said, somebody wants to do an addition down the street. I don't love additions. They're very emotional for the end user often, and out of all the different types of construction that we've done, it's not at the top of my list. But I said, okay, all right. So let me. I don't want to shoot it down. Let me just see. Let me just see what the design is. And I am not saying it because you were on the other line of this podcast. It is by far one of the coolest designs that I have ever seen.
Well, thank
Ever
you.
working in
Thank
this
you. Thank
business.
you, Matt.
Really
Thank you.
cool. Yeah,
Thank
my
you.
pleasure. My pleasure. And to call it an addition is a unfair usage, I would say. There's a small existing structure, and this is essentially a whole new home.
Exactly, exactly. Connected, which makes it an extension.
Yes, 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 definitely. Yeah. So, and then we had a great conversation. And interesting, you are in Dublin. So you are
Yeah.
originally from New York. You're a New York native.
Yes. Yep.
How
And
did you end up in Dublin?
it's well, I what happened is the short version. I was working for an international retail company in Dallas. I had moved to Dallas, and I was doing lots of work around the world, and it was just time for me to move on. And then I had this opportunity for a job in London, and I took the job in London, and they said go to Dublin for 6 months. And I said, I've never been to Ireland before. And I said, all right, I'll go. New country, I can color in the box.
Yeah.
And then went, and I have to say, if you haven't never been here, the Irish are so amazingly friendly. Like, you cannot imagine. You just, as a New Yorker, when they started talking to me, you're like, well, what do you
Sure.
want? And what it
Yep.
is that, like, they just want to talk. And they're really, really friendly. The best word I have for them is humble. They really are humble people. They just want to have a good time. They want to talk. It's just amazing. So anyway, 6 months turned into to a year, and then the company I was working for said, "Do you want to stay or not, or go to London?" And I was like, "My work is international. It doesn't matter." So it turned into 6 months. To 3 years. Unfortunately, there's a recession.
Mm-hmm.
Everything went under, and then I started my company in the depths of the recession. Hence, it didn't make sense for me to go back to New York because what are they? In a recession also. So I might as well stay where I have all my connections. And here
Right.
I am, X amount of years later.
Yeah. How COVID related is that recession in Dublin?
How what?
COVID related is it?
No, no, we're talking about the first recession. This is
Understood. Okay. Got you. Okay. Okay.
but not the COVID one is similar to New York, where after COVID, everything prices just went into la la land, and it's just like, whew, can I design anything without it just being a box and a structure? So yeah,
Yeah.
we're online with how creative can you get with just what you have, and don't add anything to it.
A hundred
So
percent.
yeah,
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 and listen, that was a large part of our conversation that we had too, right?
exactly,
And
exactly.
yeah, so okay, so are you looking to break into a new market here in New York? Are you is your plan to return here full time, or are you looking to kind of branch out and bring your practice into the New York area again?
Yeah, so what I am planning on bringing back to the New York area. So what I do, right, what my company does is commercial architecture and interiors and residential architecture and interiors. So we're a full operation, meaning I do the foundation to putting the fork on the table. So it's very rare to get those two mediums in one go. So when we're coming over to the US, I was looking to see how I could bring this practice over with all that knowledge. Now, I took everything I knew from New York, which they love over here, all that, very, very fashion conscious, all this stuff is going on. I could do really cool design. So they love that. But I learned over here how they do things, which is a bit more back to the word humble. It's more like natural materials, but yet modern. And how do you combine it with the landscape and also the buildings here? Because things are everything is what's the word? It's landmarks. So everything is a landmark. So I have to design within landmarks, which is really hard, and make it look good and modern, but yet combining together. So I learned lots of skills on how to work with landmarks and build something new or make it look like it was original. So I'm carrying those skills over. And then when you get up into where the area I'm looking at is the Hudson Valley, oh my God, it's just perfect. Because I look at these farmhouses and I see I could combine either something modern that fits with the land so it doesn't look like there's obstruction coming in, and using natural materials like stone and steel and wood, but you put them in these nice ways that it sort of, I want to say, embraces the owner and not forces you to be so minimal that you feel like you're in a tomb or a prison. So it's that combination that I learned over here. So it's a bit of, I brought New York over there, and now I'm bringing Ireland over there and combining them too.
Yeah, I think that, and I first of all, I saw that in your design immediately, and I think that is going to give you a unique edge in this marketplace. A lot of the projects happening in the Hudson Valley within our design, area that we operate in are New York City people who are leaving Manhattan either full-time, and a lot of this is COVID related, which is why I asked that earlier, or looking for a secondary place to live. And so one of the challenges in the Hudson Valley area and the more north that you go is you have people who are working with New York City architects, and then the builders that are in the upstate region, for the most part, are very old school in what they do.
I see it. I see it right away, Matt. I see it.
Yeah.
Think of who I'm dealing with, old school people as well.
Yeah. Yep. So there's a huge miss sometimes there where the New York City architects are used to working a certain way, a lot of construction administration, a lot of paperwork, a lot of red tape, and you're dealing with upstate builders who don't appreciate any of that and don't have any interest in adapting to it or embracing it at all.
Well, what I got to say about that, Matt, is it's a two-way street, okay? So I get the New York City architect, but I get the builder. And the end of this is the builder has to be your best friend. I'm going to say it has to be your best friend. If you can't relate to the builder, you've lost the game, okay? Because I'm going to have to ask that builder for a favor.
Yes.
I'm going to say, I've designed so much. I am not perfect. I will make a mistake somewhere. I will.
Yep.
Okay? And he's going to make a mistake. And he's going to want you to help him and me to help, vice versa.
Absolutely.
Okay? And so when you start talking this language of design and architecture and build, when you put them together, then you start understanding each other where you can finish each other's sentences. Yep. Then you know when he's calling you up for a problem, it's not a problem. He's calling you up for a solution of a problem.
Absolutely.
And I'm doing the same thing on my side, where he will have some really good ideas. Talking about the old timers, they are the the best on a project, okay? So when I see these old timers on the project and they're there and they're telling me, no, you don't do that, I actually shut up and listen to what they have to say, because
Yeah.
they know more than, I'm gonna say, they know more than a textbook is what they know, because they're in the trenches. So you listen to them, and you may not do everything they said because they may be so old school that you're like, well, how about I adapt it to this, and I have to say they're willing to listen to you because they want to make it work as well. They're the ones staying up, and I go, what if I did this and this, and they tell you in the morning. But not in paper, but they've been thinking about, or they hear this pencil sketch. How about that? I'm like, perfect. So it's this bit of you have to be able to speak their language, get into their head, they get into yours, and then before you know it, you get a beautiful build at the end.
Yeah, I talk about, I think about, and we work on the art of the general contractor working with the architect. It's something that is something that we put a lot of focus on here, because if there is a disconnect, the project suffers, and that usually ends up boiling over onto the client's lap, and nobody really wants that, right? And so when you have people from two different extremes like that, looking at things from those two different perspectives, I think a lot of it is about each party acknowledging that they understand the position of the other
Yep,
person.
exactly.
They know where they're coming from, but we are maybe they're differently equipped, and each person has to be able to kind of take a step inward towards each other to be able to work together. But it takes a lot of trust. And today, in my opinion, unfortunately, the industry is not where it needs to be in terms of people working as a team.
I'm going to agree with you with that. I see
Yeah.
it all the time. I got to say, all my projects, those builders, I work so well with all my I don't have any horrible builders. I gotta say, I don't have any. Okay, and because I even train my design team when they go to site. Like, here's what you need to do when you go to site. You see that guy sweeping up the floor? Say hello to him. See the guy eating the lunch that doesn't want to talk to you? Say hi to him when you come in all the time, because those two, or whoever they are the guys that will report to somebody else and say, oh, this is wrong, or this is something. And you want them to feel like, hey, that's that cool architect or designer coming in, and they're not up themselves.
Right.
And
Right.
they're willing to pick up and like, hey, Gary, I saw this over here. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. And I'm like, oh, thank you. Like, thank you. Versus, I know my shit. I know my stuff, and I'll get out of here. So,
Yeah.
and then you come out. It comes as a nice synergy coming around, and
Yep.
and when I get texts, my builder texts me even on the weekend, right? But he knows I may not answer him right away. But he knows he's comfortable enough to say, hey, here's a photo. Look at this when you get back to me on Monday. And then, sure enough, it just works. It works at the end.
Yeah. Listen, everybody's different, right? And but I have architects who have given us a tremendous amount of business who we continue to work with. Where if I ever say in front of the client that I disagree with a detail, or maybe something should be done a different way,
Yep.
or that there's any sort of alteration to their design, like, I'll get pulled in a room and reamed out for that. That still exists.
I know it
So,
does.
so
It's actually stupid, if I'm honest. Can I just say
it's very stupid. Of course it's stupid. They take it as like they're being undermined, and there are general contractors and builders who do like to do that, right? They like to take the reins and do things their way and deviate from the plans. But the whole skill set is to be able to maneuver and be creative within that design range, right? It's to say like, hey, like I saw how you drew this. I love what you're going for here. Can I just make a suggestion? I think there's a better way to approach this, or, we may not need to do it this way, or maybe there's a waterproofing issue, but the relationship has to be there. And one of the things that prevents that relationship is the form of contract sometimes, and or the failure to properly communicate things to the client by the person who is the first person involved in a job. It's a common issue that I see, right? And so something that's happening right now, a lot for some reason, is we're seeing architects sell projects to people and tell them that there is not going to be any change orders on the job, and then like a change order happens, and then we get that. And like we're not pro change order or anything like that. Like that's not what I'm saying. But and then like well there should never be a mistake on the job, and and especially on the architect's behalf. And then we see people very upset with architects, and I'm kind of like, hold on a second, like no architect is perfect here. Like you would need 1,000 drawings for an architect to never make any mistake on any detail on any job. That's not reality. And if you want that, you're going to pay $500,000 for a set of drawings for a $2 million house. Like this is there, you have to give yourself 5-10% contingency for imperfections in design. And that's what we're here to do, is to solve these problems together. But the way that the jobs are being sold recently is alleviating that and creating this incredibly tense situation. And we're on the outskirts going, what are these guys doing? Why would you sell that to a customer and then have an upset customer for 1 to 2 years, depending on the size and duration of a job? It makes no sense to us at all.
It does not make sense at all. And it goes back to what I first said in the beginning. When you have this relationship, okay, there will be mistakes, okay?
Yes.
But you know what? A lot of those mistakes are resolved, if I'm honest, before the client even shows up. Because
100%.
I go, oh, look, here's this beam. I didn't realize it's coming in this low. Why did you put this beam in? And the builder would tell me, like, if I followed your drawings, that beam on the first floor is going through a bathroom. I had to bring it down. And then I'd be like, okay, let's look at this. I had to say that I brought the beam down. But you know what? It's a great feature if I clad it with a timber cladding, and now that actually become an accent for the beam. Leave that with me, and then you can see. And I gotta say also this. I'm gonna give something away. Some of my best designs are mistakes. Some of my best designs. It's sort of like we opened up a wall and there's a stairway behind there. I'm like, oh God, how am I supposed to know in this building there's a staircase here? And I can't take it down because so I'm going to have to figure out how to work with this, okay? And before you know it, that becomes a feature, and the client likes, oh my God, this is beautiful. Yeah. And I would love to say that, wow, I thought of it, from the beginning, but it evolved into this beautiful detail. And if you make it work that way, it starts to, your designs and your buildings actually, here you go. It tells a story. Yeah. Okay? And you could feel the story of the architect and the builder and everyone coming in, because when you walk through, it doesn't feel cold and unbearing. It feels like, craftspeople have worked on this, and look at how this feels when I walk in. Okay? And you could tell that there was a team. You can always tell when there's a team and when there's not.
Right.
We've all been on those projects, you're just like, oh, they were pissed because...
Yeah.
That molding is just ending.
Yeah.
And they're off the job.
Yeah, they made a statement with that. Yep. It's funny. Like I have a background in. I went to school for music production and sound engineering. Right.
Really?
So
really?
Matt,
tell us about this. What's going on?
I don't know how I ended up in construction. Yeah, but it's funny when you say that. Sometimes your best designs are results of a mistake or an accident. Right. I liken that to the recording process of music. Sometimes some of the greatest songs were created by an error, right? People talk about it all the time. There's a lot of examples of it. Or we were just having fun and fooling around in the studio, and we were joking, and all of a sudden this melody was created, and we kind of added on to it, and this song became what it was today. That is part of the process.
Yes.
But then there's another part of the process, which is sort of the opposite of it, right? Which is like all that is good and fun, but it has to be right and it has to be exact and it has to be mathematical. That also exists in music, but during the sound engineering portion of it, right? Like when you turn off that creativity part and you turn off the recording aspect of it and the creation part of it, you turn on the other side of your brain, or you have a different person who is a sound engineer, and they are nothing but analytical and measuring, and both need to exist, but there's a way that they both need to exist together.
You got it, Matt. You
And
got it. You got it. You got it.
right,
So if we go over to the technical side now, okay?
right, yep,
This is a good transition, Matt. We'll go over there.
sure, yeah, yeah,
So when I'm going on a site, so just so you know, in my back, when I here in Ireland, I'm designing these big, beautiful houses over here. Okay, and the planners are really strict, like super strict, and I get them through, but I have to make sure I check off their boxes. You see, not my boxes, their boxes. So I have to think as a planner. I got to make sure I have all these boxes checked. So I make sure their boxes are checked so I can get my projects through. That that takes structure. And so I had to make sure that everything is structured in my office, that goes through. The next thing is the builder. I have to make sure my drawings are set very organized, easy to read, because if there's too many notes or not enough, the builder will go out berserk. They get glazed over. They're human beings. Face it.
Yep.
You see all these words. They're like, there's the picture of what I could do. They start on it. Okay. So I got to make sure that's easy, understandable, so that when I'm not around, they can read that. And on the other side, I have to make sure that all these the formats are going through. So the subcontracts, the electrician, it all coordinates well, so that when people look at the drawings, you can find yourself anywhere. Okay. Now, like you said, if I did this to the 100%, it would be like, you just like another skyscraper. But
right.
You just have to make sure things are easy to read, digestible, and organized, so that it's easy to pick up on a
Absolutely.
project.
Yep. And it's not only the builder who needs to be able to interpret the plans correctly, it's all of the people on the job site need to be able to interpret the plans and be able to build it to the extent that you want to see it built, right? I had a conversation with an architect recently. We bid a project, and it came in a couple $1 million over budget, like every other project. And so that results in every project. Yeah. Yep. Literally every project. So that turns into, hey, we really like you guys. I need some help getting this thing to be, feasible. And we say, okay, cool, great. Let's do some VE on this thing. And we shaved off $2 million of scope, working with the architect on it. And I told him, I said, we did. He was very happy. And I said, I have one request from you though, only one. There's one caveat. And he said, what's that? I said, your drawings need to reflect everything that we talked about and we took out. And he said, so what do you mean? I said, so let's pretend like you and I go on vacation for a year. This project can be built without people saying they have to call you or I to answer questions. And I think that element is really crucial in finalizing a design based on what happens a lot in construction these days, which I kind of want to talk to you about as well, right?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
There's no disagreement on that. There's no disagreement on it. And I always say that if I get run over by a car, it can be picked up and taken off without me. Okay?
Definitely. Yep. It's basically a set of instructions that people are going to follow.
Yeah. And I tell the designers I work with, you know what? Imagine you're opening an IKEA box and you have to do it. You know how frustrated you are? That's what the builder has to go through.
Right. 100%. Yep.
So
yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, so go ahead. What else would you say?
So look, one of the challenges you're going to find, getting into the Hudson Valley region is that the cost of construction is pretty excessive right now. I'm telling you, not 1 out of 20 jobs that we bid, we get like a, hey, you're awarded the job. Let me know when we can get into contract and start. It's always over budget, especially on the residential side, right? And so somebody, especially like you, who is very, very creative in your content, you speak a lot about, being unique in your approach and not working within a box. Unfortunately, we do work within a box, and the box is in the format of finances, right?
Yep.
And so it is very difficult for people to get their dream home with the budgets that they have to spend.
Right.
Have you found anything in your travels in Dublin or in your experience in New York City that you think that you can bring to the table, or is there a certain approach that you have to get from a certain starting place to a project that is buildable and feasible, but still really exciting for the customer?
Yeah. Okay. So this might be a long answer because
It's
I'm going
okay.
to go through you with different parts. Okay. So this is since post COVID. Okay. Every project has to have an estimator. Period. And it's in my contract. And I always say to them, you will save more money than you can think of if you have an estimator. They never believe me, but because it's in my contract, they're forced to have an estimator. Okay? What I do before I even start the project, even take their money, is I give them the reality check. Okay? And I say, you're going to have a meeting with your wish list and the estimator, and he is or she is going to give you a range about what you just said you wanted. Okay? So when you see that, you will realize my fee is not in there. You could take out the builder's fee out of that. So you're just gonna get what you want. Then their eyes open up, okay? And before I even start, they change their wish list. Okay? So because what would happen is I'm losing before I even I put my foot on start the job. I already lost.
Yeah.
Because I'm a jerk, can't keep the budget. I'm always doing things that are crazy. Because I could never ever meet their wish list. So I get them to be educated on that. All right, so now we get that. I start the project, and I say this to everybody: I can make anything beautiful. I was trained. I went through school for all this. I worked many of years. Anything can be beautiful as long as you know your parameters. So once the client says, I have these parameters, then I said, okay, what do we have? And then they go, all we got is a shell. We don't have anything.
Right.
We just got 4 walls, a roof, and nothing. Good. That's good, Matt. That's good. Because if I know their lifestyle, meaning I don't know what they like, so we'll just say they're a cool bunch of people. And I said, we're going to design your house like a loft where we're not going to have all the walls go to the ceiling. We might have, areas like toilets and bedrooms. We might cap them off. But we'll treat it like a loft space. But imagine, and I use lots of adjectives and describe things. So imagine you have this sort of new version of a farmhouse, and it's a loft space, and the windows, and you can see the mountains, and there's a pond below. But yet, when you go inside, it's just a bare space. But then, what I use is wood materials or wood-like materials, because I know about wood as well. And I would say, or maybe I'd use underfloor heating, and then I have this beautiful tile that looks very warm. Or I'm using paint, believe it or not. I've used lots of projects with just paint of how I do contrasting dark colors with warm colors. And then I say, put that aside. Guess what? Nobody looks at this, but your furniture is so important. Because if I had this simple space, amazing soft furniture, there's the windows. Hey, people are like, this is what I see in the magazines. So
Are
this,
you involved with furniture selection? Do you get that far?
I get that far. I get that
Awesome.
far.
Yeah.
But it depends on the client. When I give my proposal, I
Yep.
say if it's a furniture, here it is. If it's interior design, interior architecture, architecture. We
Got
go
it.
through all this. To tell you the truth, Matt, they love my interior architecture all the time. And when I stop they just can we continue on?
Yeah.
And then when you
Yep.
go on to the interior architecture, they go, well, can you help us out with the furniture? Yeah, I
Yeah.
can go further. And before you know, they get what they want. Hey, but you know what else, Matt? I do, because sometimes they're running out of money when you get towards the end. So I said, look, I'm going to give you a style guide so you won't go off. And here's the type of furniture that I worked in that fits well with your home. So you can go find same or similar, and now you don't have to fret what's going on. And then like, oh my gosh, this is so helpful, because when you have people that are not design oriented, this is stress. I realize it's stressful for people. They stress over what these small things for me are big things for them. And I even did a podcast on this. I have I have clients that are on the verge of divorce
Yeah.
because they can't decide the tile in the bathroom. I'm not joking. They
No,
can't.
I've seen it. I've seen it. I've seen
So,
it.
and then what I do with that is, I say to them, they show me like I was up late last night and she wants this and he wants that and blah blah blah, and I should show me the tiles. And they're like this. Well, you're both wrong because those don't work. This one does. And they're like, well, how do you know? I said, look, you hired me. This is the one that works. Look at how it matches everything else. So let's go with this. Move on, okay? And then they keep quiet. So I'm not a jerk, but I do have to put the sledgehammer down sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think people actually like that, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, so it's
'Cause-
like you're talking, you're like, yeah, you could do this, and then no.
Yep.
No, no. The other thing with that is when you're dealing with couples, they never realize, this is important, it's like I'm a psychologist as well, they never realize that they can have their cake and eat it. So he feels that he has to be his way or she loses, or she's going to lose if he has his. It's like this. I was like, why can't I design something that takes what you like and you like, put it together, your own unique style, where it can be this, you can have it. And they're like, you could do that? I'm like, yeah. So
Yeah.
and basically, it's sort of like he may want rustic, she wanted me luxury. So imagine this barnwood wall with this beautiful luxury sofa in front of it. And they're like, we never would have thought to put them together. I'm like, yeah, because you're thinking in your own zones. And what's also good, if I be honest, I'm the third party. Everybody's great with the third party.
Yep. Yep.
And I don't sort of cater to one or the other, okay? And I do make sure they know that, she may say, like, he may say, well, you're always agreeing with her. I'm like, no, not really, Matt. I mean, or Joe, to make up a name, Paul.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
I look, you got the windows, you got this and this, okay? But I'm not keeping score. I'm just making a good design, so you know that.
Yeah.
And so they kind of come around, and at the end, Matt, they're always so happy. It's like, because they could never think that they could have both at the same time.
Yeah, that's you're kind of like a wedding planner at this point.
No, Matt, I don't want to be, but
No, I either do I.
I want this beautiful
Yep.
house. I treat it like my own. You know how you work very hard, and when you spend late nights trying to pull things together, you have a self-interest. You're like, look, I got this far. This is going to be a beautiful house. I'm not just going to let it go. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, and also it's your reputation. Okay.
Yeah.
And you really have pride in your reputation going forward.
Yeah, there's usually a point in a job sometimes where you start to see people getting defeated. They run out of stamina, and it stops being fun and really exciting, and you kind of have to, you got to push through, and you have to push through with them and hold their hand through it and support them and encourage them. Like, at the end, this will all be worth it for you. But you also have to make sure at the end, this is all worth it for you.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right. I could
Yep.
write a whole comedy book because
Yeah.
I tell my designers, Okay, in this stage in the project, and this is about 80% into the project, Matt. Okay, this is when
Yep.
the walls are up. They're not painted. They're kind of gray. You haven't. They're everything is looking dull. The lights are not on yet. They walk in and it's just horrible, but it's
Yeah.
the boxes, all right? And they go in, and it happens every time. I laugh every time. I'm just waiting. Okay, is this going to be the day? Yeah. Get the phone call. Gary, can you please come down? Right? Come down. And they go, yeah. And they go, I spent all this money for this little house. I can't believe it's going to be fine. Wait till they finish the paint and they put the cabinetry in. No. Week later, oh my God, my house looks amazing.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And you got to hold their hand. You have to be like, how can I say? It's like having kids. You're like, it's traumatic. I got to have empathy for you, help you go through it, and then they'll come out at the end because we've been through it before. We know they haven't. And so they just see like their life savings just got shrunk into a horrible gray box.
Yeah. It's usually the largest investment that people make. They put a lot of their money into their homes. It's a big deal.
Exactly.
And often sometimes too much money that they, you know.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And another thing, Matt, when we work with clients, it's so much people business on this. I often say to people, "Is this your final home?" I mean, I got to talk about their lifestyle. Is this the end home? And when they say, maybe, I'm like, so then we're designing it for you to move or to live, and they go, well, I think we'll stay for 10 years. Okay, so I have to make sure you get your money on return on this house. Okay.
Yep.
And that's when I start, like you were saying, too much. I'm like, nope, you're not getting the marble from from Italy. You're gonna go get the Corian, or not the Corian, or like a what you call it? What do they have?
Yeah,
Like
quartz.
the quartz.
Yeah,
Styles
yep.
go to this. You're gonna get that. You're not gonna get this. You're gonna get that. We'll make it look good, but if you're not gonna live here, you have to design it for the next people.
Yeah, you have to consider resale.
That's right. That's exactly
Yep.
exactly right.
Yep.
And then that becomes a big thing. If your final home, I'm like, it's okay to spend extra money because what are you going to do with it? You lived your life for this house, so make it the house you always wanted.
For sure. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Tell me about your social media and your YouTube channel and your podcast.
Okay. My social media is Cohn_design or Cohn Design. And what I do is I give podcasts on architecture, on interior design, on commercial design, and also residential. And
Okay.
there's a bit of education going on with everything that I'm doing. So kind of like our conversation right now. I'm educating people on how things are working so they understand. Also easing their minds on things. And I actually teach them as they go along. So the last one that I was going through some AIs explaining to you,
Yeah.
don't think that AI is the end of all. It's another tool, okay? When you first got Pinterest, yep, it's like Pinterest on crack. That's all I'm going to say right now.
I watched the episode about the the kitchen design with AI, and
Yeah.
it's an impressive tool, but you don't just press a button and you're done. It's not going to replace the architect.
Exactly. And who's
Yeah.
going to detail this? A great picture. And then also you have laws and codes that you have to make sure that all goes through, and you have to file all that. Who's going to file all that? So it's a great tool, and you use it for what it's worth. You don't get scared of it, but you use it, and then you manipulate it. And on my side, it's to make my job a bit easier, hopefully, so that I can get to the end result much quicker.
Right.
Like that. So, what was your question? I forgot what you said. Oh, my YouTube channel. So I have that on there, and then also I have my Instagram where I'm doing the same thing, and the TikTok where we're going over a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're also recording yourself talking about just certain topics outside of the podcast, right? I saw you like to talk about mental health, which I think is really good and not talked about enough in the
Yeah,
business.
if I got to say anything, that was a
Sure.
real on the mental health was. I was really going over a lot about my clients' mental health, and if you notice, what I was talking about a lot today was about their mental abilities and of that stress of having a house. So
Yeah.
if you can imagine, if their designer can see that, they actually feel relieved, and I got a lot of people telling me how what they're looking for have we're not just clamming up. So with the mental health, that one was also about coming out of COVID, and I was explaining the mental health of people in our industry, Matt, where when I during COVID, I won't go through all the details, but during COVID, because how people were influenced so much by the media is that we didn't know. Just remember, way in the beginning, we did not know how bad this virus was. Okay, all we're seeing is people are dying, 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 and then now it's going down, and then it's going up, and then this is causes it, this doesn't cause it. So my clients could not make a friggin' decision on anything. I could see it's just like the news. I like this. I don't want this. I want that. I don't want this. I do want this. I don't. I was like, if I change this thing one more time, I had 26 revisions on one house. I was just like, but I'm locked up, so it doesn't matter. So, but it's still, once COVID finished and you were able to go out, they were occupied by other things. Decisions came like that on their projects, just like
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
so, as a result, it comes to looking at what your environment is for your mental health is really important. And then when I created my designs for them, it was most of the people coming out of COVID, they wanted houses that were calm, serene, view of nature. Kind of sounds like the Hudson Valley. They
Yeah.
wanted to have that feeling of just, of stress gone away, of, how about this, of another time that in a fictitious time that is better than we are today. So they don't want to be in the old times, but they like the feeling of it, but they want all modern conveniences.
Yeah. 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 The best from both worlds, essentially. Yep.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen,
So,
I'm optimistic that these conversations are going to continue to happen because, and unfortunately, it does affect the bottom line. And let me tell you how. I think as we continue to progress in this business and in most businesses, it's becoming more and more obvious that for you to be successful, there needs to be that level of trust that we spoke about earlier, right? That area of trust is where success happens. In order for there to be trust, the relationships between the stakeholders need to be healthy. And in order for that to happen, people are going to continue to feel like they can be their most authentic self.
well said, Matt. Well said, Matt.
Thank you. That is my most optimistic view of how I think that we're going to continue to improve as a business and an industry. So I'm glad that we were able to talk about that.
And I had to add now just some more concrete things to that. And I also believe that as on the construction side, that people have to start to see that prices are just going so expensive that you have to reevaluate what is your priorities in your home or your business or whatever you're
Yep.
designing for. And so I do see we have to get clever. And I had a conversation with you when we first met about what's an alternate way I can do this wall if I can't do it in wood. What is an alternate way that I could do this that I can in another material that gives me the feeling of that's less expensive. And it's not giving up, but it's this sort of, you need to stop, you need to let the people need to let their minds expand beyond what they think they have to have versus what they feel they want to live in. Do you see the difference? I
Yep.
want to feel that nice coziness. So maybe it's I'm going to be on. Maybe it's this warmer color of a wall, since wood is too expensive, but I can make that feeling have that, and then the
Yep.
proportions of that. So it's about that, and you will be able to have beautiful spaces, homes, or businesses, or hotels or restaurants. As things, I'm going to be honest, things are getting more minimal because it just has to be. We can't just spend like we used to because the prices are not there. Okay,
100%.
so and it's like, and when we first met, Matt, this was happening is as you were educating me on the Hudson Valley prices.
Yeah. Yep.
Because I've been out of New York for more than 10 years, okay?
Yep.
And then I was just like, oh, damn, I forgot.
Yeah.
And Dublin's not too far behind, but you're still ahead, put it that way,
Yeah,
okay?
we are ahead, unfortunately.
But anyway, my conversation shifted, and it was about, okay, listen to Matt, and I have to figure out how to get this into some sort of an area of price area, and we said if things goes forward, we will have a brainstorm meeting. Okay, a
Yep.
meeting, and that is healthy. I go back to my like you said with your other client. We get to there, and then you go back, you do the drawings, and then now you have your footprint.
Absolutely.
And you bring the clients along. Here's this: manage your clients' expectations. Okay, so
Definitely.
if you're not going to make it, meaning all wood, you got to say it. It's not going to be all wood.
Yep.
Let them have their hissy fit right there. When they're done, they'll come back and they say, "Okay, what can we have?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
And
you go ahead, yeah.
no, I was just, I am, and we are of the most value to people when you can trust us to. There has to be that element of trust, but we also have to feel like we're not going to be taken advantage of at some part of it too. So like, and I'll keep it real quick because I know we have to wrap. But I put together a CM proposal for a local project that we did a facility for people who have eating disorders, and
Yep.
there's a new approach to it. And the owner's rep has this whole CM package, and this is the way that he wants to do the job. I did it. I put it together, but then I called him. And I'm like, look, this is not. I know you think this is the least expensive way to do this, but it's not. I can do this for you in a more competitive and efficient way, but it's going to require you to give me some trust. So think about how I can earn that trust for you, but like that trust is what's going to make me be able to bring all my tools to the table. But I also expose myself a little bit in that, and I need to know that we're not going to get to the end of the job and not get that final payment or be blamed for things that we're not responsible for, right? So that's
We've
what I'm
been,
striving for
we've
here.
been burned so many times. Let's be honest.
Same.
We've been burned so many times. Okay, and you know what is, and I still fall for the trap. I can be honest. I still fall for the trap, but I don't fall all the. I put my foot in. I put my foot in it, and then I'm like,
Yep.
I've been here before. And
Yep.
if I'm honest, I had a talk with one of my clients this morning because been here before, and I learned, Matt, call them right that moment. And
Absolutely.
say we have to have a meeting about what's going on. And again, they're not going to like the meeting, but you do it right away. And then at my meeting this morning, it was about, to be clear, they cut me down. They cut out these parts of the project, kind of like what they're doing with you. They take that out, take that out, take that out. And I was like, if you take this out, who's going to do it? And like, well, we're doing it. I'm be honest, you're not going to do it. And then
Yeah.
as soon as they started throwing it at me, I'm like, well, no, we have to have the conversation because
Yep.
I said I'm not going to do this. Guess what? They were upset. They called me back. You're absolutely right. You did say that. So let us see how we can reevaluate our proposal. Because you know what? I will be disgruntled, okay? Or you would be disgruntled because you're like, I said I wasn't going to do this. I'm doing this. I'm not getting paid for this, but I can't let this fall apart. And it becomes this sort of weird thing. But if you I've learned in the past, address this right away, okay? And then it starts to make everything starts to work. I actually learned that from an HR person. And she said to me, when you're having a problem with your staff, you don't wait. You write the email right away. You find the solution. You bring it to their attention. The longer you wait, the more it festers. And then the other thing that she said to me is, if you're going to get married, okay, and you're going to call off the engagement, if you call it off a year from now, it's there's not a problem. You don't do it on the threshold. Then it's a problem.
Right.
Same thing again, breaking it off, but two different scenarios.
Definitely.
So you do it right away. So anyway,
It's great advice. It's great advice.
Yeah.
Garry, how can people get in touch with you?
Sure. So my you go to my website, which is Cohn, Cohn design.com. You could see there the information is all there on my contact information. Also, if you go to my YouTube channel, Cohn_design, and then that's the same for for my Instagram, Cohn_design, and TikTok, the same thing. And there's lots of fun stuff there. My designers are always getting creative with all my work, and we're always having like, what are we going to teach next, or what we're going to do next. So, and we're pushing always the limits, whether it's commercial projects or residential.
Great.
That's good. So thank you, Matt. And
Awesome.
thank you, Matt, for inviting me to come.
Yeah, thank you. I enjoyed this conversation. It was great.
Okay, and then I'll be what I could do is post up the Kemp's house onto my blog, and I could to do that. So I could if I
That'd
do
be
that
great.
next week, you could see what the house is preliminary because it's all schematic right now.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sounds great.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes, yes, and you have fun in New York.
Yeah.